Hello, my name's Heather and you're listening to Island Girl. This is episode 5, Chaos Theory. Sylvianne checked her bag again. Pens, pencils, notebook. Yep, all there. She must have checked her bag 5 times already, but nerves were getting to her. She swung the tote bag over her shoulder and walked through the college foyer. She had been directed through to the IT block. Brian Holton's classes were being held there. She was early, but she didn't care. She'd worried she wouldn't get a parking space. The college car park could be called minuscule at best, and there was no on-road parking anywhere near the college, which all meant a potential hike from the nearest car park at the opposite side of town if she hadn't got there in good time. Sylvianne poked her head around the door. There were banks of PCs on benches in rows. From her limited knowledge of these sorts of things, she thought these looked quite old-fashioned. Big screened units with wires bundled loosely and tied with garden twine. Wasn't everything supposed to be micro-dotted these days? She heard the scuff of shoes on the tiles behind her and turned to see a youngish chap approaching at a quick no-nonsense pace and a ready toothy smile. She smiled back tentatively. She didn't know if he was student or tutor. "Tinternet for beginners?" he asked. He sounded as chirpy as he looked, and had a winning smile which widened even further, if that were possible, when she nodded. "Hi there, I'm Brian." He offered his hand and pumped hers enthusiastically when she grasped it gently. "It's okay, go straight in. Find yourself somewhere to camp. But don't go hiding at the back. We don't have a really large class, and you won't be able to hear me all the way over there." With that, he eased past her and walked straight over to the whiteboard at the front of the class. Sylvianne followed, deciding on a second-row seat. Not too keen, not too coy. Putting her bag down, she looked over her machine. She realised she didn't even know how to switch the bloody thing on. Could she feel more stupid? She felt alarming stirrings of uncertainty, which wasn't for the first time today. She had called that phone number from the local newspaper and followed through with the registration process for the beginner's web course on a wave of manic focus that was driven in part from, ridiculous though it may sound, the confidence boost she had enjoyed from her new haircut, but more importantly, what was at long last a resolve to improve her lot. Inevitably, as this day approached, she felt that resolve waver ever so slightly. And now, if she were being entirely honest, she felt positively ill. She hadn't been on a course of any description in years and years. Surfing. That made it all sound West Coast hippie and fun, and so as more people drifted into the computer lab, she determined that that was exactly how she should approach it. If only her stomach could quit with the collywobbles, she might stand a gnat's chance of accepting it. As it turned out, she really didn't need to have worried. She wasn't the only one who didn't know how to turn on the archaic PCs, much to her relief, and with some confidence restored, she took interest in her immediate colleagues, sat, as she was, next to a rather pleasant gentleman of 72 who, despite his advancing years, was able to offer timely hints whenever she faltered, and directly behind her was a lively woman called Brenda, who was both robust and effervescent, with a blousy charm that got her through almost everything that was presented to her, familiar or not, which Sylvianne surmised probably reflected how she conducted almost all aspects of her life. Sylvianne found herself genuinely enjoying both their company and the offbeat humour with which Brian managed the mishmash of personalities and abilities, which in turn helped her navigate her way around surfing the web, understanding URLs, and setting up email accounts. Sylvianne completed the evening having surfed, and felt pleased to have found Wikipedia, in particular the entry for the Roque de los Muchachos Observatory in Las Palmas. She also set herself up with an email account in Yahoo. Brenda had shown some real flair, choosing to set up a Hotmail account, calling herself Crazy Cake Lady at hotmail.com, which immediately had Sylvianne disappointed. She hasn't shown a similarly adventurous streak, having settled for a straightforward stockard at yahoo.co.uk, which on reflection seemed remarkably uninventive. However, determined not to let that dampen her spirits, she headed home, armed with an email account of her own and details concerning the La Palma Observatory. With the elapse of time comes clarity. It can take a while, longer for some than others, but when it comes, it becomes possible to reevaluate happenings like the disintegration of a relationship in cold clinical detail. It can be viewed in dispassionate 3D glory from every conceivable angle, and at some point, even the most reluctant will come to see what had previously been mystifying. Sylvianne knew intimately each of the waypoints that marked the decline of her marriage and signified another notch nearer to its collapse. But more unappetising still was seeing the part she too had played in its demise. While Stockard had been the one who had issued the final coup de grace, the bitter fact remained that they had both been complicit in allowing their marriage to shrivel and die. She had shied away from confronting that fact. She would retreat to bitterness and blame. Stockard had left her. He'd walked away from their marriage. He had turned her life on its head. All her present misery was laid at his door. But secret whispers came to her, little truths. She opened up the laptop at home. It was different to the PC at the college, but she had talked to Brian about that, and he had gone into some detail with everyone about the obvious differences between PCs, laptops and tablets. She wasn't so out of the modern life that she hadn't understood, and here she was connecting to her newly opened email account. Thankfully, the technology that linked her machine to the outside world had long since been installed and taken for granted. She had no idea how it all worked. There was a router thing which winked and blinked in the study, and that was the extent of her technological foray. If it ever failed to work, she would need to call someone. But for now, she was online, and that was fine. She hadn't ever really felt a need for emails or even computers, but more and more she'd come to see she was isolating herself from the world by not having these basic skills. It didn't even make her feel accomplished to finally have got on board. She just felt it was about time. Sylvianne began her first ever email to the recipient at the Rock de los Muchachos Observatory, her son, Josh. "Hi Josh, it's me, Mum. Look at me. I've finally gone and done it. I don't know why it took me so long to join in with the rest of the world on this wide, wide web, but here I am. I joined a class at college just once a week. We're going to be covering all sorts of things, basic stuff mainly. We did emails tonight, so I wanted to do this while it was all fresh in my mind. So how are you? I know you're on late shifts at the Min, which is why when I started this course, I thought you above everyone would benefit from my newfound IT literacy skills. I hope you aren't working too hard and you're taking time for yourself. Maybe going over to Tenerife for at least a little bit of fun. All work and no play and all that, you know. Please email me back so I know all this works. I think I prefer actual talking, but this I think could work when real talking is more difficult. Talk soon. Love, Mum. Kiss, kiss, kiss." Well, it wasn't exactly Shelley, but it made contact. She had finally gone and done it. After everyone's moaning about her lack of interest in being connected, she'd told Josh she had upped and joined a class just like that, when in reality it had been wholly more than that. It started, she thought, when she had looked up and seen herself in the dressing table mirror, and she had seen what she had let herself become. Really seen. But that had nothing to do with Josh. He didn't need to know all of that. It was enough to say she had joined a class. No one needed to know the monumental efforts she was prepared to put herself through. It was enough to know that she knew. She had looked up, and she had seen. She pressed send. She looked up then, startled. There was a firm rap at the back door. Sylvianne was sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, her tote bag just left by the door where she had dropped it in her haste to get in to email Josh, and she still had her raincoat on. As she looked over to the door, she could see through the side window that it was Ellen at her door. Ellen, looking back through the window, saw Sylvianne, waving back at her as if to come on in. As Ellen came through, Sylvianne removed her coat and put it over the back of the chair and walked over to put on the kettle. "Hi, Ellen. Kettle going on. Want a brew?" Wasn't exactly a regular occurrence, but Ellen did make her way over for tea often enough for Sylvianne to know exactly what the answer would be. "Yes, indeedy. Just saw you drive in. Where have you been? It's not like you to be out of an evening." "I know, but I have officially joined the brave new world of technology. I just sent Josh an email." Sylvianne flicked the switch and turned toward Ellen, who was now sat at the table. She brought 2 mugs to the island worktop and fetched instant coffee and tea bags. "I Skype." Sylvianne's hands stilled on the mugs as she looked over to Ellen, who was looking over at the laptop. If ever Sylvianne needed reinforcement that it was well past time to get with the programme, it was now. "I checked out the observatory on Wikipedia. I've enrolled on the college's adult basic web programme. It was good. First time tonight." Ellen nodded. "Yes, I did that too. It's amazing all the things you'll be able to look at now. It's an excellent way to doodle hours of time." Ellen smiled then. "I even do my shopping online these days. And they all offer it, you know. And with Christmas shopping, it saved me killing myself in the crush." Sylvianne nodded enthusiastically as this thought. Brian Holton, he's the tutor. He said we would look at shopping, eBay and PayPal accounts next week." "I know Brian, such a nice chap. You'll be up and whizzing about the internet in no time, like you've been doing it all your life. Glad you're getting out and about, Sylvianne. You're looking better in yourself too. I noticed that the other day. Your hair is looking lovely, by the way, and you have some bloom to you." Sylvianne acknowledged this information. She did look better. That much was obvious. Sarah had added the promised highlights to her hair, and honey and hazelnut, apparently. It sounded more edible than glamorous, but the final effect had been subtle, blending out the ageing greyness, but not so completely as to make it look false. "Thanks for that, Ellen. I do feel better, it's true." She paused, about to say more, but as she handed over the mug of tea, she saw that Ellen was looking very tired and drawn. "But you look tired, Ellen. Are you okay?" Ellen looked rueful. "I have toothache." Sylvianne didn't laugh out loud, but with humour she said, "Ellen, you have dentures." Ellen grasped the mug of tea. "I know. It's weird, isn't it?" Sylvianne sat opposite the older woman. "You Skype?" Thank you.